I'm Steven, your host, and tonight I was joined by John and Sam to play Blood Bowl Team Manager, the card game. And here's my wife Adrienne to tell you about who designed Blood Bowl Team Manager.
Blood Bowl Team Manager, designed by Jay Little and Konieczka, was first published by Fantasy Flight Games in 2011. In 2012, Blood Bowl Team Manager was nominated for 2 BoardGameGeek Golden Geek Awards, Best Card Game and Best Thematic Board Game. At the time of this recording, Blood Bowl Team Manager has a 7.4 rating with 11,000 ratings on BoardGameGeek and has a ranking of 354. I'm not sure if that's a good thing. It is a 2 to 4 player lightweight game that should play in about 60 to 90 minutes. But gentlemen, please feel free to take as long as you'd like so I can have the TV to myself upstairs.
To give you some context, there are about 200,000 games on BoardGameGeek currently listed.
Wow.
So, just looking at what you've just read, what do you think Blood Bowl Team Manager, the card game, is about?
It's a tongue twister.
Excellent. So, thank you for joining us at the cellar as we go in depth with Blood Bowl Team Manager. Mutant League Football. No, I'm sorry. This is Blood Bowl Team Manager, the card game from Fantasy Flight back in the day. I think here at the table, I'm the only one that's played this, and I've played it at least 2 or 3 times with people in our group that are no longer with our groups. I think Kyle and I played this a lot, and Chris. So I've played this one. Sam, you have some experience with Blood Bowl, right?
So I'm familiar with Warhammer, the universe, and I played like 15 minutes of a bad video game once.
So it wasn't Mutant League Football, was it?
No, it was the actual licensed Blood Bowl video game.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that there was one.
It was not very good.
Yeah.
So not much surprise there. But I'm familiar with the universe, I suppose you could say. I'm familiar with the fiction.
Okay.
So I'm excited to play it.
John, you have no idea kind of what's going on.
No, not
there.
at all. Not with this. I have participated in Warhammer 40K and a little bit of Warhammer, and that's the limit of my.
So, are you aware that Blood Bowl was originally one of the specialty games that Games Workshop offered, where you actually put together miniature teams and ran around a pitch?
You actually built teams, and I do know that part. I know the lore. I've never actually come in close contact with it, so that's where I stand. So this is all very new for me.
So I got my gaming career started with old collectible card games, so like Magic the Gathering, and then it was Star Trek and Star Wars from Decipher. Upper Deck's first board game or first game was a game called Gridiron Fantasy Football. And it was a CCG, much like was very popular at the time in the late 90s. And essentially what would happen is you'd blind purchase cards like you would in CCGs, and you would put together teams with playbooks, and you would run the football up and down the field. And completely busted game. Like, the development on it was really bad. They didn't spend enough time on it. They just, Upper Deck saw that CCGs were where the money was, so they jumped on board as quick as they could. I love that game. We used to play it all the time, and it made me sad that it never really took off. I think it had 1 expansion. Fast forward a few years, and Blood Bowl Team Manager comes out, and I'm at games and stuff, and I pick it up, and I'm like, oh my god, this is Gridiron, but
done well.
Like, they've actually put together a really good product here. I immediately bought it. I immediately took it home. I unpacked it, looked at all the cards, got familiar with everything, and I'm like, all right, great. Just Jones into play. So I think I got Chris and Kyle to play with me almost immediately, and I'll tell you, it's a really, really fun game. Like, the theme is just dripping. Theme is bleeding from this game.
And frankly, that's what I haven't played this, but it does seem very, very thematic from all the stuff and the flavor text included, and that's what makes a good Warhammer game. I think is the theming, and just I like it in general. Theme is really important. A a lot of games that could be great end up middling because they're lacking theme.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's something we've talked
Or
about
their
on
theme
the
just
podcast.
doesn't quite fit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
We've,
and that's always the question.
and that's always
we've
weird.
nailed a couple games to the wall that I think would have been really good if they had a better theme.
Yeah, I mean, Ark Nova comes to mind. Like, if they had just tweaked the theme, I mean, they could have left it the zoo, but if they had just, like, done it a little better way, it would have been great.
So I'm hopeful that the theme holds up, and it.
Yeah. So essentially what we have is each of us is playing a team of a Warhammer faction. So I'm going to play the Skaven. Sam is the dwarves, and John is playing wood elves, I believe.
The wood elves, yes, indeed.
And so, like, if you look in the book, there's a little blurb about
There's
what
a
each
little
one,
there's a little blurb like
a little background, and then each faction has its own set of strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, I'm playing the Grudge Bearers, John's playing the Athelorn Avengers, and Steven is the Skaven Blight Scramblers.
Yeah. And so what you have is essentially, because we're playing 3 players, there's 3 zones of control that we're going to play over. And we're going to play the cards, the players from our hands to these 3 different zones to try and win the zones. And essentially what we're doing is comparing. Each player has a star power, which is what's going to assert dominance over the field, and then they all have, or most of them have, some kind of ability that kind of like tweaks the rules a little bit. So I mean, there's so much theme here. I can't wait to like really just get into this with you guys.
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay.
I'm excited to play this.
Yeah,
I've been reading through the rule book, and
so the basic
it looks
running
good.
here is there's a card here, the unsportsmanlike conduct card, and 2 of us are going to decide to play on either side of this. And okay, so what decides who wins? Each of these cards has a number in the upper corner. That's their star power.
That's their star
Yes.
power.
Okay, so is that the first thing you do? So how do you decide who wins?
So you compare star power. So each player card has a star power.
Yep.
And you can tackle players, which downs them, and then you have their downed star power, which is normally less.
Okay, so that decreases the strength of that
There is a
card.
ball token on the card. And there are player abilities that allow you to take control of the ball token, and if it's on your side of the card,
Then that adds to you.
then you get 2 points.
2 additional points.
Two additional points.
So we're still working on
it's all about the
capture
points
of that card.
Yes.
Yes.
And
Okay.
Still working on capture that
the
card.
ball token is essentially like a tug of war.
Yeah.
That
There's a passing ability where when you play a player, when you put a player down with the passing ability, you move the ball token to that player if it's in the middle, or in the middle if it's on the other team.
Okay.
And the ball is only worth 2 points. So you'll notice, like, true to theme, the ball isn't. I mean, it's important, but it's not that important.
yeah.
It's much more important to break the hip of somebody on the other team that's got 3 points or more than that.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
There, you can also earn points through cheating. There's a bunch of face-down cheating tokens, and certain players will get cheating token. You'll put some face-down on that player card when you play it out,
And then when you
reveal.
When you resolve, you reveal all the cheating tokens.
And there are 3 results. They can give you 1 point as your cheating is effective.
They can give you 2 points,
1 or 2 points. You can gain fans, which are the actual victory points for the game.
which is hilarious. You cheat so hard that the fans actually love it.
Or you can.
that's their Los Angeles Raiders fans.
Yeah.
Or
Las
the
Vegas Raiders
referees catch you and decide to do something about it, and that player is discarded and removed from the match.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm playing the elves, so that won't be an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because we're good guys.
I would imagine there's not a ton of elven cheating going on.
Yeah, I'm thinking that I may be at a disadvantage to capture fans.
I mean, maybe, but
We'll see.
We'll see. And like I said, there's so many. Like, you're looking at the Chaos Cup up here, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you win the Chaos Cup, you're going to get 5 fans. If you
Second place.
or second
Yes, you
place, you're going to get 2 fans, and if you lose, well, you get the booby prize of an extra card.
Oh, okay.
But as you can see, like some of these highlight cards,
I mean,
have
if you
fans,
just
have fans
choose
available.
this side of the card, you
Right,
get
so-
two
so-
fans no
so-
matter what.
So those are the winnings for taking over that side. So each
No,
card.
that's just you get those for being on that side.
Right. So
You don't have to win. If you win, you get what's in the middle.
So each card has a reward on either side of it, which you get by claiming that spot first, and then there's a reward in the middle that whoever wins that particular bout gets that.
Yes.
So how do you get the Chaos Cup at the end? So there's these three cards in the middle. That's what we're fighting over.
So the tournaments work the same way as the highlight cards. There
Okay.
are 2 zones on each highlight card.
Mm-hmm.
There's 1 zone per player for the tournament.
Okay.
So you can put players down, assign them to the tournament game, and at the end of the round, we tally whoever has the highest score, and whoever does wins.
Okay. So we're actually fighting for 4 slots.
We're
all 4
actually
slots.
fighting for all 4 slots.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
And then there are star players that we can recruit later as we go that have higher star power, more powerful abilities, more icons to do extra things.
So your deck
there's-
of cards will grow.
Your
and
deck
you'll
of
get
cards
more
grow,
powerful cards.
and you'll get more powerful cards.
Okay, there's
and then
3
you'll get
upgrades,
and
I
you'll
think?
get team upgrades as well that essentially give you other random bonuses. Like every time you win a zone of control, you get 2 extra fans, or
Okay.
once per turn you can heal a tackled player to get his full points back.
Okay, so
There's-
these cards are going to flip over, and those are going to be in on your tableau,
Yep.
sitting on the table in front of you, and then you're going to be able. So your team will. Each of us will get different special powers for our teams depending on what we win.
Also, just to note, right, because there's a lot of different symbols. There's 4 payout icons, fans, which are victory points, star players, which are the OWA and the CWC, and also team upgrades and staff upgrades.
Okay.
For all of those,
Staff and team.
yeah, you draw 1 card per symbol. So if you win the Chaos Cup, you get 3 staff upgrades.
But you keep
You
one.
keep 1. You're drafting from 3.
Okay.
So for the next round, you'll still only have 1, right? If Steven wins the cup and I lose, and we're still gonna have the same number of upgrades. He just got to pick a better one, probably.
Okay, that's fair.
Which is nice.
Yeah. So I mean, it's
We're
been
kind of rambling
it's
about the
probably
rules
been
now.
like 10 years since I've played this. It's dripping with theme, and I am so excited to play this. So let's put these mics down and get into
And
it.
get playing game.
All right, cool.
Congratulations, John. You have won Blood Bowl Team Manager.
But
Hey, by
I-
1 whole point.
I won't forget. This is going in the book.
I just want to mention that even though I lost, I did win the Blood Bowl. So I'm claiming
Yes,
a more,
you did.
I'm claiming a moral victory.
Yes.
You know what? That's fair, and that's also going in the book.
Wait, what book do we have?
The Book of Grudges.
Oh, okay, all right. I'm good with that. Put me in there a second time, just because.
a natural for this game, and I'll
You-
tell you right now, just you
were-
folks out in TV land, we're all smiling, and sometimes after games, you're not smiling. I mean, you may have enjoyed it, but this is a game that just kind of lifts your spirit when you play it.
Yeah. Steven, you were playing the Skaven, so you're already in the book. Like, there's
I
a
mean,
whole page.
look, I can't help that I have to augment the rules
You
by
can't help that you're sneaky,
bending them
conniving.
a little bit because I'm a bunch of rats.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, and you're dwarves, so it's like, I got to do what I got to do. I mean, I have claws. I got to scratch out a victory
Nice.
or loss, as it were. But
I think it's fair to say we all really enjoyed this.
yeah, I was very happy. Honestly, I never. I look at my games and there are ones that I look at and I'm like, I remember playing those, but I don't know if that's ever going to hit the table. Like this was in my trade pile. This is on board
Really?
game. This is on BoardGameGeek as we speak. The Geek Market
As for trade,
for trade. I'm going to take it down right now.
Well, I was about to ask you how much you want for it.
I was gonna say.
'cause,
I mean, it's woefully out of print. So
and
the
it's never
aftermarket-
coming back because it's a
the
Games
license
Workshop
and
license.
Games
Yeah.
Workshop,
which
so.
is a shame. This was fantastic.
Yeah, so it's up there for a premium, but I'm going to keep this one now. I'm glad that we circled back around to it. I had this feeling that we never would get back to it because, we've got so many games It just seemed like one that would it kind of have gotten forgotten.
So one of the byproducts we're getting from doing these podcasts is we're looking a little deeper. We're trying to find stuff that's a little more out of the ordinary. I think we've pulled up some very interesting games because of that. These are gems that are sitting in our collection. Some of them new, some of them very old. We had played one game from the 90s, and I think
played one game from the 60s.
You're right, one from the 60s as well, and I think we've been very pleasantly surprised. This one in particular, I'm not a big fan of the Games Workshop art, but in this game, it's a little lighter and a little more entertaining. I mean, there's a levity to this game that you don't see in a lot of Games Workshop stuff.
Well, that was kind of the point of the original Blood Bowl, is that it's comedic.
Yeah, and
right?
and the text on these cards nails that. I mean, there's somebody put some good time into figuring out amusing things to write on the cards.
Yeah, I mean, I had the death roller where the dwarves were rolling the giant death machine, and the flavor text is, I'm pretty sure that's illegal. And yeah, but are you going to tell him?
So it's that kind of thing. And you know, so there's 4 or 5 things in this game that means that I should not like it. It's got rules scattered all over little cards and stuff, but there aren't so many that I found it overwhelming. It's got Games Workshop art, which I don't particularly enjoy usually, but in this case, it's the right amount. And I like the head-to-head. I like the fact that there is some dice rolling. I think you could maybe do with a little more, but there's enough in here that kind of keeps things, keeps the rattle going. And then there's kind of like a deck building aspect where you get a chance to draft new players and put them into your deck, and then find a way to get them back out again. And there's ways to manipulate your deck and ways to manipulate what's going on the board. And oftentimes I feel like I'm kind of the junior player that other people are able to kind of do that better than I do, but I think I held my own in this particular game. I think it's a tight enough game, it's a small enough playing field that you can kind of see all your options and you can make that work. So I really enjoyed this play.
Yeah, and it was interesting when we pulled it out, or when we were in the process of pulling it out. You both looked at me and said, "Is this going to be a good 3-player game?" Because games like this, you tend to think that you're going to need an even player count.
Well, it's based off of football.
Yeah.
Which, you have a team going against a team.
You have a team
Right.
going against a team, or 2 teams versus, like, if there's an even number, you can see where you would delineate, this player versus this player this round, and then you switch up and you're against the other players. But the way that Blood Bowl Team Manager handles the odd player, and the way that you're putting the cards out, it actually abstracts it out really well to where it feels right when you play with that odd player.
Well, and it's like you're playing an entire Sunday simultaneously. So in spite of there are 3 players, nobody's sitting out. There are 3 games going on the table.
Potentially 4 if there's a bowl game going.
Yeah,
perhaps
I thought-
4. But you're getting in on at least 2 of those 4, and since you can play to any field anytime you want, I suppose technically you could play to 1 if you really wanted to, although I can't imagine that would be a good strategy.
Yeah.
But so your 2 opponents, and a couple of times we lined it up that each one of us was playing one of the cards against each of the other players.
Yeah, we each had a matchup against each other.
I don't have proof off the top of my head, but I suspect that if you sat down and you gamed it out, that's because that's the optimal way to play, right? You want to be in as many fields as possible to a point. You want to be in more than 1.
Right.
And if there's only 3, you're going to end up in 2 of those, right? So
yes, you have to.
You figure.
Well, you don't have to.
So everybody's.
You do have to.
No, you don't have to, because there were a couple of instances where
if
y'all could have snookered me because I played.
have
if there's
to,
no bowl
but-
game.
Yeah, if there's no tournament,
somebody could play all in 1 slot, and somebody else could get 3 slots
Yeah.
versus 2.
if there's no tournament, then you could snooker the third person.
And,
right?
and I could see where maybe late in the game, depending on what cards you drew that gave you special scoring, there might be a crazy situation where it would be to your advantage to throw everything in one
even then,
game.
I'm pretty sure the third player can act intentionally to avoid that happening.
Yeah,
and with the 4th player, it's not. I'm pretty sure you're guaranteed.
it's
2
not
spots.
probable to happen, but it's possible.
Yeah.
is all I was
So
saying.
in a 4-player game, there are 4 cards
There
out
would be
that you're
4.
fighting over?
There would be 4.
Okay.
What do they call them? Event.
So you,
highlights.
there'd be 4 highlights, and then the potential for a bowl game. So there could be up to 5.
So you get your fair shot at a couple of games
Mm-hmm.
or a couple of highlights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cards in the middle that you're fighting
And
for.
frankly speaking, you still only get 6 cards. We had that one round where I
Right.
was competing in 4 places, and I lost every single one.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because you had
because
too
I was
much ground
spread
to cover.
too thin.
Yep.
So
But sometimes, like in that last round, sometimes that doesn't matter because all you're really going for is the bonus that's on your side.
Right.
You
Well,
could
sure.
almost care less of what the winning bonus was.
sure, but you're not guaranteed to get for that to be true every time.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I
even,
know.
Oh, right.
And
And
even
that's
in
what
that
I'm saying.
case, you still have to weigh the cost benefit of you're handing whoever's across from you on that card a win.
Yeah. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
all I'm saying is that what seems like a really simple, like just kind of simple card game actually has a ton of depth, especially when you consider how you get to play your cards out, and then not only how you're playing them out, but which cards you're playing into what situation.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on here.
Yeah,
There's a lot.
and even your calculated risks when you're rolling those dice to tackle a player on another team, there's a chance you end up tackling yourself instead.
Mhm.
So
It's
everything.
not likely, but John did roll box cars once.
Yes,
Or sorry, snake eyes.
Snake
Box
eyes.
cars is 6s.
So it can be so those sorts of things because I really like that level of unpredictability in a game. And it's the same thing playing real football is if you want to go for that long pass, you know you're taking risk, and so from that perspective, when you're rolling those tackle dice, you sit there and say, maybe I don't want to do this. Maybe I just want to play my card down and mind my own business because if I manage to tackle myself, I'm gonna really blow it.
And I really enjoyed that on the surface, it looks like there's a lot of complexity here. Because you have the player cards, and then you have 3 different upgrades you can earn each round, right?
Mm-hmm.
So go through those for us.
So you have your basic player cards, and as an upgrade, you can earn star players, which are, I think, just universally better cards, right? It's deck builder.
Yeah.
So you can add better cards to your deck, and when you earn those, they go on the top of your deck.
So you
you're
automatically get on the next
guaranteed to
round.
draw them. Then you have staff upgrades, which is a big generic pile of upgrades that everybody pulls from that let you score points, or they give you one-off abilities you can use during
they're
a
nice
round.
nuggets. They're not stunning, but
yeah.
they're nice nuggets. And when you get 2 or 3 of them piled up, they start really kind of working for you.
And you have team upgrades, which you have 5 of them per team. So 5 for each of the 6 teams, and those are kind of themed around what your team does best.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds like a lot, right?
Yeah.
But the way the game works is you earn these based on how you do during the round, and then at the end of the round, you only get to keep one.
One of each of
Right. Each kind of upgrade, right?
Yeah.
So if I draw 2 star players and 3 team upgrades and 4 staff upgrades, I still only get to keep 1 star player and 1 of each of the other 2 upgrades.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so you get more to choose from, but you have to pick
There's
one.
more to choose from, but I only pick 1. And so if John managed to get 1 staff upgrade and 1 team upgrade, well, he doesn't get any choices, but he still has the same number as me.
Yeah.
Right.
And it also means the number's limited. There's only 5 rounds.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could technically get out all of your team upgrades, but then as the game goes on, as we kind of found out, the star players become less and less important because you use them less.
Yeah.
Like in that last round, the star player was, for me and John, was useless, except for you, you had a team upgrade that keyed off of having star players in your deck.
Yes.
So
Well,
it still
was
made
a-
sense for you to grab one.
So,
Yeah.
so like any engine building game, I mean, early on in the game, you want to get those star players because they're going to make you more powerful in the later rounds. But towards your second to last round and your last round, especially your last round, picking up another star player is no advantage because he's never going to get played, and they don't give you bonuses that give you points. Whereas your team or your staff upgrades potentially can give you points at the end of the game. There's a lot of end game points, and I ended up winning the game because at the end I got to pull like 6 or 7 staff
you
cards.
pulled 7 staff cards.
And there was one in there that scored me points, and that was enough to put me over
Yeah.
the top.
So the point I was making is that it feels like there's a lot of complexity there, but you only get to keep 1 of each around.
Yeah, it makes
Right?
it very manageable.
So at the going into the final round, you can have at most 4 or 8 upgrades total, right? But you're probably not going to have 8 total.
No.
Yeah, you'd have to
Right.
be very difficult.
Yeah, it'd be very difficult to have that. And frankly, they're not terribly complicated upgrades, right?
Yeah.
It's totally manageable.
Yeah, because they're all onesies. They're nice onesies.
They're
but
onesies, and frankly, they don't all actually have an active effect. I mean, I had one that gave me an extra 5 points if I had enough star players, which is why I went out of my way to get a star player on that final
just
round.
to close the deal, right? Because it was
to close
worth
the
points.
deal. Well, if I hadn't gotten another star player, I would have ended at 32 instead of 37.
Okay. So both of us were doing Hail Marys at the end of the game. You needed to get a star player. I needed to get something that generated points out of that staff deck, and that was the final. We both threw a Hail Mary at the end of the game, which is awfully fitting considering the thematics here.
And frankly, I think while we're touching on the thematics, I think it hit the thematics really well.
I agree.
I was pleased. It felt chaotic. It felt silly. You had
the flavor text is just
always wonderful.
Ridiculous.
I always
And
love good flavor text.
Sometimes flavor text in games is just awful. You're like, well, maybe I better not read this.
Yeah.
Why waste my time even reading this?
It doesn't hit the point, or you sit there and go, we were kind of having fun, and then you hit a sour note. This game, everything was genuinely
But even
amusing.
beyond the flavor text, I also liked, for example, passing the ball back and forth, right? Where there's only 3 places the ball can be. The enemy team can have it. It can be on the field, or your team can have it, which I think does a good job of kind of capturing the ball going back and forth and who has control of it. But it's not too complicated, right? It's nice and simple. Same with the cheating tokens, where cheating is a big deal in Blood Bowl, right? It's part of the game is the teams compete to see just how much nonsense they can get away with before the referees call them on it. I read a book about Blood Bowl once upon a time, and that was the big part of the story was, the good guys, the protagonist team they played by the rules and they won fair and square, but they were going up against an orc team that was famous for cheating by just murdering as many players on the other team as they could get away with. And they were really worried about it because the orc strategy
was like a Blood Bowl novel?
Yeah.
Really?
There's a number of them. The other team's strategy was just to cheat as much as they could because you didn't lose the game. If you got caught, you just got evicted by the refs. And there was a point that one of the other team's players was a big troll who no ref ever called out on for cheating because the last ref to do it got eaten. So he could just do whatever he wanted.
No, that's flavor.
in two respects.
Yeah. and in this game, there are some of the players have the cheating ability where you get a random cheating symbol and it can give you a bunch of points. It can score you fans, which are permanent victory points, or it can have them evicted from the game and then that card's just gone.
Yeah,
right.
And that's
so there's risk there.
So there's
as well.
risk, but it's fun. It's flavorful. You're like, This guy's got like 4 cheat tokens on him now.
See what happens.
Is he going to win the game, or is he going to ruin it?
He is either going to be stunning, or he is just going to burst into flames on
and
you.
even tackling is the same way, where you're rolling the dice and it's chaotic. Oh, let's see what happens.
Yeah,
it encourages you to be violent.
A lot of like really good. I mean, there was no standing up here, but you can see the potential, and if it weren't so cold down here in the cellar, like. There were some good stand-up moments, especially with the die rolls and some of the
revelation of the cheating tokens.
Oh yeah,
it's like
you're looking at it. And it's like, okay, I've got 9 points and you've got 7 points, but you've got 4 cheating tokens.
And it completely takes away that optimizing BS, which usually frustrates me to no end in games like this, where you got your last card and you're like, okay, well, I played over. At some point, you need to make the call and you just say, man, 4 cheating tokens on your card over there, Steven, that's too many. That guy's getting thrown out of the game. I'm going to play over there, and so I mean that ability to still have that "do I feel lucky" feel when you're playing that last card instead of it being a cold calculation that you sit there and work out, I think is really valuable, especially in a game like this where all the other flavors in the game are talking about kind of playing over your head.
You can't take it seriously.
Yeah,
right.
No, it's a hard game to really get. I mean, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and there's meat here to dig into, but you're not gonna pour. It's not like Splendor where you sit here silently and take your turn and you're plotting. No, you gotta.
No, you're trash talking your opponents and
Yeah.
You're telling Sam he's making stupid moves so that you kind of get in his head so he does something different.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot.
Or you get him to take the high risk.
There's a lot of table talk.
And it's often in this game is the guy that you're trying to talk into attacking the other guy is also in a battle with you. So you want his attention focused on, go ahead and have your big old war over there. I'll very quietly do my little thing over here.
But and you bring up a good point, because there's a lot of glitz to this game. There's a lot of shine and glamour, and when you get down to it, it's about resource management. You have 6 cards in your hand, and you're going to play 6 cards onto the board. Or on the table.
And some of those skills are much better late than they are early.
There's nothing you can do to change that. You're going to play one guy a turn until everyone's played 6 cards, which means you really do kind of get this sense of jockeying for position. Well, I'm not going to play my star player first. I'm going to play a lineman because
you want to keep them in your pocket.
I'm not committing, and I want to see what the other players are going to do.
Yeah, and then they have abilities that may not even trigger if there's no one there to trigger.
Right.
Yeah,
you can't tackle somebody who's not there.
There's a lot of game there. Is what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of game, and as a quick side note, everybody gets to do the same amount of things, and I like that. There's some games where, especially engine building games, where not everybody does the same amount of things. I mean, we just played Imperial Settler, where John finished his turn, and then Chris and I went for another 15 minutes.
But on the same token, and I'll bring this in, is each of these decks played differently, because I had the ability to churn my deck and pull cards and discard a lot, because that's just the nature of the elf deck. Whereas I think you had much less of that. You were more of a...
I don't think I did that ever.
Yeah, so you had to grind out the 6 cards you got.
Yeah, so let's explore this for a second. So there's 6 factions in the base game.
Is there an expansion?
There is an expansion. I do have it. It's still in shrink. So we'll revisit this one in the future. But just want to say...
You need to grab that before he sells it.
It's coming off too. So there's 6 factions. We played 3. There's 3 of us, obviously. Do the math, whatever. So, Samuel, you had the dwarves. Tell us about how the dwarves play and how you felt playing the dwarves, especially considering how it seemed like me and John were playing our races. And we'll go around the table.
So
just kind of
the dwarves, true to their flavor text and true to their flavor, right? You pictured dwarves playing football. They didn't have a lot of ball throwing.
Very short little arms.
Very short little arms, yes. But they did have a lot of tackling. And when they got knocked down, their power level stayed pretty high, right? And they also had a lot of abilities that were like, oh, you can't tackle this guy if he has the ball.
Yeah.
Which I think frustrated you guys a couple times.
A lot, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
But aside from that,
the other thing is, because they have short little legs, they also didn't have a lot of sprint symbols.
I didn't have any. Yeah, sorry. Sprint. So the sprint symbol is
that's what lets you draw the cards.
Yeah,
right?
lets you churn your deck to find the cards you want. I didn't have any of those. I don't think I used that ability at all this game.
Yeah.
So the 6 cards that I drew were the 6 cards that I was stuck with. Now I got to expand a little bit because you pull star players from all of the factions, not just your own.
Half of them.
Half of the factions. Yeah. Right.
So the good guys and the bad guys.
Yeah, basically. So I was able to kind of diversify a little bit. I got some more throwing skills. I got to interact with the cheating symbols a little bit.
Now, you didn't have many cheating symbols to begin with.
I had one guy with a cheating symbol on the base deck.
Okay.
So there's whole swaths of the game that the dwarves don't really interact with. But what they do have is a stout, dependable lineup of, they're good at taking hits and giving hits.
They have good star power and they have good tackling.
And they have good star power and good tackling, but don't try to do anything fancy with your deck or with the ball or cheating.
Yeah.
I did get to draw one of the star cards I got. Was a dwarven one. It was the Death Machine. Which was a lot of fun because that was just tackle 3 times and get cheat tokens. Get a cheat token for every successful tackle to represent apparently the dwarven habit of bringing crazy gizmos onto the field to cheat with, which I enjoyed, but that bit of flavor is not present in the base deck.
Yeah. So I had the Skaven, and I feel like the Skaven were kind of the jack of all trades for the bad guys. Because while I did have a lot of cheating tokens, like I cheated a lot. I think I cheated more than both of you guys combined.
Oh, easily. You would. I think at one point you had like, what, 6 or 8 cheat tokens in the one match?
Well,
the one match doubled them, too.
Yeah, because the one match had the double cheat tokens. So, yeah, there was one guy that had 6 cheat tokens on him. And he didn't get ejected, which was amazing. But I also had a fair amount of passing tokens, which manipulates the ball going back and forth. And then I also had at least 2 cards that allowed me to sprint. So I was able to kind of make my deck better and or make my hand better in a couple of ways. So I had a pretty decent spread of all of the symbols. I will say though, when my characters were were tackled, their power almost always dropped to 0 or 1. So it was very imperative for me to keep my players up.
Stay standing, or
because
didn't you have the ability to stand up a player or something?
I did, but I got that from
that was a general upgrade.
The team upgrade. I got the apothecary.
That's right.
But
That's what it was.
never rolled it.
Never
successfully rolled it. I actually killed one of my players with him because I rolled the X.
Yeah. But I think you were just trying to stand up a basic lineman. So
yeah,
you didn't really
I wanted
lose
another
anything.
guard. I wanted my guards standing back up because the guards
essentially
they can take a hit.
They force people to tackle them instead of somebody else
that's more valuable.
Valuable. So I've played the Skaven before, and I thought it was fun. I had a good time with them. Like I said, they're kind of jack of all trades, so I got to play pretty much all the aspects of the game. So I didn't do very well, but whatever.
Well, I mean, as John and I discussed, we were. I mean, I was a lucky draw away from missing my 5 points. If I had drawn one of the freebooter star cards, it wouldn't have counted, and I'd have been at 32 instead of 30.
Yeah, but even still, I enjoyed playing the Skaven. Yeah, so John, you had the Wood Elves.
I did, and frankly, I just kind of grabbed a deck at random, and that's what I got. I would not have picked the Wood Elves. Elves playing football just didn't feel right to me, but actually it was a very interesting deck to play. The Wood Elves are, if you read their backstory, they're passers. They throw the ball, they run, they move a lot. And so the 2 symbols that I came across was that ball control symbol, which is very nicely done. They're not trying to use hieroglyphics to make any of these symbols make sense. There's only a few symbols, so they're pretty memorable. But the nice one for the throwing the ball is it's the football, which is what you're doing. Is you're moving the football around.
The symbol matches the shape of the token.
Everything matches, so it's really easy to remember.
Yeah, the curse tokens are that way too, and then the tackle symbol, it shows up on the dice. The only one that doesn't match anything is the sprint. But,
so what they're able to do is they're able to get away from the hieroglyphics that a lot of games use with arrows and cards and all kinds of crazy stuff, and just use basic icons that have their analog in the other game pieces, so it makes it really easy to remember everything. But anyway, what I had was that's the sprint cards, which allows you to draw cards. So you'll play a card down and says, well, you can sprint twice, which means you draw 2 more cards from your deck. You look at what you got, and you get to discard any 2 you want. So because I had so many of those at the beginning of each round, the first thing I was doing was playing down a guy that had sprint cards, so that I still had 5 cards in my hand, and I could pull 2 more, and I could start discarding down my weaker cards. So I was always bringing my A game is what it boils down to, and that's what the Elves allow you to do. And so a little bit of ball control works into the picture, and then the minute I got a team upgrade that said, okay, if you get more, it was a staff upgrade that says for every team upgrade you're getting points at the end of the game, then suddenly I knew that was my goal in these games, because some of the rewards give you team upgrades, and all I have to do is, if I capture one of those, is 2 points. So every turn I did that, I got another 2 points. I got to do that like 3 or 4 times. I had a nice big pile of them, and of course I won by 1 point. So I mean, every one of those ended up counting. It changed me from coming in second to coming in first. I mean, it was a difference between the win and the loss. So from that perspective, the deck was actually fairly interesting, and they didn't go too elfy. I mean, the art still manages to make them look like football players. The woman elf, which is one of my players, actually looks like she could kick my butt in a back alley. So they managed to keep them looking very elfish, but at the same time look like they might actually be able to play a football game. So I think they just did a nice job getting the setting and the thematics all working along with the actual gameplay. I enjoyed. I'd play the elves again. Obviously, I'd like to try the other ones too, but I'd play the elves again in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I will say it seemed like each deck was pretty on point for how I'd anticipate that theme to go, right? You know, the elves are kind of flighty, but they've got a lot of tricks. The Skaven are rat people who, you know, there's a lot of them, but if you knock them down, they scurry off and they cheat a lot. Yeah. But aside from that, they're pretty good at stuff. It seemed like your cards had a lot of abilities on them.
Yeah, I mean,
the main weakness being when they're down, they're not good for much.
I don't have any. All of them basically go down to 0. Like I have one card that's goes from a 4 to a 2, and then I have
a 3 to a
2
1.
cards that go from a 3 to a 1.
Yeah, I don't think I had any cards that go to a 0.
Yeah.
Or I had maybe the 3 basic line. Like the most basic linemen, I think, still go to a 1 to a 0, but I think those guys are the same for every faction.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine more or less cut in half.
Yeah. The dwarves
or worse
lost 1 point across the board.
Yeah.
So they were still worth a lot of points. And frankly, I like that in a game because, you know, it's only 12 cards, but each faction felt, okay, this faction does play differently. The elves are over there they're gonna mill their deck to find whatever they want. The dwarves are going to deal with it, and the Skaven, well, if you give them a good bonk on the nose, then they run away.
Yeah, I mean, it actually took me until just now to realize that the difference between the standing and tackled is a balancing mechanic that they use. Because the first few times that I played, you know, I'm looking at the symbols and the overall power as how they balance the different factions. But, you know, playing against you guys and actually paying attention for the podcast, I started to see, well, wait a minute, my guys are getting knocked down and they're worth 0 points, where I knocked down some of Sam's dudes and they're still worth 2.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense because these dwarves are stout, where these little rat people, they get knocked down and they run off, or they, they're
you squish them,
or they're just rat people.
I mean, you have the guy there showing has 3 abilities on him, right? And you have probably a couple guys with 2 or 3 abilities, right? I have 2 cards in the base deck with 2 abilities,
and all the rest are 1.
All the rest are 1 or no.
Yeah, so you're just grind up the middle football is what you are. Yeah.
I think okay, so all of your guys have more than 1 ability symbol on them. Yeah. Except for the linemen.
Except for the line. Yeah. And I think the linemen are pretty standard across.
Yeah, I think they are the same
for everyone.
But I wonder how. I have 4 linemen. How many linemen do you have?
Oh, I only have 3, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, even the distribution of cards might be something that they've done. I mean,
and yet it seems I've got 4. It seems very well balanced.
Yeah, see,
I didn't feel like somebody else
but
was
I got
like
rid of 1, so I'm not sure if it maybe ended up in the box. Hold on, let me count. Oh, there's 1. What are you talking about?
Maybe not. That's the chaos. Anyway, I mean, this is the difference between, Fantasy Flight at its height.
Yes.
Versus games that are kickstarted. Like,
yes,
you can tell that there was a lot of development that went into this product.
A lot of people played this game.
A lot of people played this game. There were a lot of people that... if you look in the rule
4
book,
linemen.
Let me see the rule book. I bet before I even open this, there are probably a half dozen developers or people that are credited as either development or...
And the very fact that you say development is oftentimes games have designers. They do not have developers. And developers are the ones that close the deal. They're the ones that look at the game from an independent perspective, that IV&V we were talking about earlier, that say, hey, you got something here, but here are the problems you need to manage. And they keep the designer's feet to the fire until the design gets completed and everybody's happy with it.
So this one has 2 game designers, a producer.
That's a developer.
That's the developer. You got You got 2 people that did editing and proofreading. Let's see, art, licensing. You got a production management. I guess that's probably putting it all together. But then you have the executive producer, and you've got a block of playtesters here. These are staff playtesters. These aren't hey, I'm going to
they've been
send
around
you.
the horn.
I'm not going to. These are people that are employed by games or by Fantasy Flight, or have worked with Fantasy Flight for a long enough time that they're vetted. These aren't just random people that, hey, text me or send me a Facebook message and I'll send you a prototype for you to play test.
Exactly.
Right. They didn't back it on Kickstarter and
get the early release.
There's the game I played.
Yeah. So, these are people that you look at their names, these people played the game, reported back to Fantasy Flight, and changes were made.
Yeah, so there was a level of polish on this game that you don't typically get, and I know it always sounds like we're complaining about new stuff in Kickstarter, and I realize that I'm the cantankerous old man, but and frankly, there are games on Kickstarter where they have done the level of development that needs to be done, and you end up with a good product. I think when Fantasy Flight was the big house, and they had the time to go after something like this when they weren't competing with people that were putting out games in 6 months, they had the ability to really tune a game like this and get all the pieces right, get all the play right, so that all these 3 decks, I didn't feel either one of you had a particular advantage or disadvantage on me when we were playing.
We were doing different things, and we had advantages and disadvantages on things that we were doing, but as a whole,
it was a match.
It felt pretty even.
It felt pretty even. I mean, At no time did I look at me losing and say, "Oh, this is because I picked the wrong faction."
Right. It
was okay. I identify where I played incorrectly.
Yeah. I did not look at any card and go, "Oh, well, that's stupid. That card is broken."
What year is this thing?
I'm still trying to look at trying to get the details off of the box. Who designed this? Who's on the front cover there, Sam?
The front cover?
Well, you got it.
It's
right
on
there.
the back.
It's,
It's right there at the top.
Game design?
Yeah.
J. Little with Corey Konieczka?
Konieczka.
Yeah. And
I know that name. Why do I know that name?
Because they're Fantasy Flight staff.
I was going to say, look over at that wall over there, and there's 3 or 4 more games.
Oh, well, fair enough.
So and Corey is well known for putting out very good quality product, innovative, different, has its own feel, and frankly has this sort of polish, this refinement that this game has. So I can see why this game is in demand. Because boy, I'll tell you, this was a very positive play experience, and this is coming from 3 noobs. I mean, sometimes you play a game for the first time and you're like, what just happened, or something doesn't rub you the right way, and every part of this game says, rack it up, play it again. Everybody pass your deck to the person on your left. I mean, you would love to play this game again.
All right, frankly, I would. I don't think we have the time for it tonight.
Yeah.
But I would be thrilled to play this game again.
Yeah, we'll bring this one back out again soon.
So that brings us to the part of the show where we break it down and give a rating to Blood Bowl Team Manager, the card game. So John, you won. Do you want to go first and kind of break it down for us?
I think this is as polished a 7 as you are ever going to play. Period. This is definitely a buy. Go out to your store and buy this game.
Oh, that's just mean, John.
Yeah. Why do you gotta?
How
twist
long
the
has
knife
this one
like
been
that?
out of print?
That's what I was trying to look up. I think it's
since 3 weeks after it was released. This was quite the talk when it came out. I remember looking in the forums on There Will Be Games. There's a forum that's essentially, hey, what game are you playing? And this was got a lot of talk. So it's a 12-year-old game at this point.
Yeah. So this one was put out in 2011, and I mean right in the middle of the heyday of Fantasy Flight games.
Yes, the golden age of this sort of game.
And I mean, say what you will, but back in so I started going to conventions in 2008, 2009, and Fantasy Flight was already kind of known as one of the premier game publishing houses
and the big project.
Yeah,
publishing
and
house.
the big honking they called them coffin boxes. So like Descent Road to Legends and StarCraft and World of Warcraft and
Tide of Iron,
and they probably had another one that I can't think of. But I mean, these are massive boxes that are like 30 pounds of card. I mean, they put some Kickstarters to shame.
Yeah, and complexity in the games, manageable complexity. I mean, very refined.
Chaos in the old world.
Yes, you're right. There's another one which was a monster when it came out too, but just big productions, big, larger than life. I mean, the kind of thing that a kid's eyes go to saucers when they see it on
and then
Christmas morning.
even like their smaller games, like love it or hate it, Citadels was a great game when it came out.
Yeah, their Silver Lines had a couple of very nice ones in there too.
Monster Arenas,
and then their middle ones like Battlestar and other things like that too. All of these very well refined games. People weren't asking about the rules because the rules were well written. People weren't finding these odd seams in the games or edge cases that they couldn't quite figure out how to handle. All of that stuff was already rooted.
There were never included FAQs. And you never really had to go to BGG to look up a rule question.
Yeah, I mean this rule book is really well written.
Yeah. Now to be fair, at times they had to publish expansions to kind of make the game more whole, and you might argue that was a plan, or them fixing things that they discovered after production. Yeah. But when it comes right down to these are all very good products. And I'm going to interrupt here for just a second because everybody talks about.
You're not interrupting, John. You're still talking.
Good point. This is the golden age of games because so many games are coming out. You have so much to choose from. And I'm like, well, okay. So back then, 40 games came out a year, and 20 of them were really impressive. And now 4,000 games come out a year. And 20 of them are really impressive, right? So to a large extent, I think there's everything that's being added. Of all the things that are being added, I think you're getting a whole lot of chaff. I don't think you're getting that much really polished, high quality material. There are still winners, and you got to be playing new games because the old games are great, but you got to find that new juice, and it's out there. You just got to be more particular. You got to be a little more jaundiced, and for me personally. I like buying the stuff used. I like buying the stuff after it's been out in the market for a while so that I can get other people's real life humans' opinions of it, not people that are, doing promotional work and that kind of thing. So
because those people have forfeited their humanity.
Exactly. They
forfeited their right to give actual opinions.
Well, they forfeited their credibility is what they've fundamentally. And I appreciate that they got to make a living too. They got to eat, but I like to hear from the and frankly, sales numbers I think is often one of the more straightforward ways is how many come out, how many people are buying, and how many people are putting it back into the used market. And you want to buy the games. I like buying them used. I just don't want to buy the game where everybody's selling their copy. Some people are selling their copy. Yeah. So that I realize we're all giving our ratings, but I just want to make that point a little more clear that I think there was just as much good coming out then as there is now.
All right, so Samuel.
Yes.
What's your number?
Oh, right, we're rating things. I
mean, we went on a little
tangent,
little detour there.
I'm also going to go on a little detour.
Okay, go
because
ahead.
we talked a lot about the theme and the flavor and just the time put into making something that fit together well. So my first experience with Fantasy Flight games that I can remember, right, that really stands out to me is going, yes, Fantasy Flight, I recognize that name, was not a board game. It was a tabletop RPG. It was Death Watch, which is an RPG set in 40K, where even today, it came about, I don't remember exactly when it came out, but about the same time frame, right? About a decade ago, right? And it was part of a whole line of 40K RPGs that Fantasy Flight was putting out. And they were all very well written. They were fun to play. And there was just a ton of lore and fluff and world building in it. And even today, those RPGs are still by a lot of people considered excellent sources for just information about the world, and they were interesting to read. It was a lot of fun, and they've always stood out to me as being very polished designs. And I think that definitely holds true here as well with Blood Bowl Team Manager, the card game, is the full title is it feels polished. It's a lot of fun. I would love to play this again right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to kick you out because
I know, but I'd like to.
Yeah,
right?
No, for sure. If I knew that we could get through a game in less than an hour, I'd say let's do it. But this is a game where you shoot for an hour. Sometimes it's a little less. Sometimes it's a little more. I think.
Ours an hour and a half.
I think it was an hour. Yeah, I think it was 90 minutes.
Yeah,
it might have been 80 minutes. But
I think we go faster with knowing the rules, but
a little faster.
So I have to give this a very high 7. I think. Right. I definitely enjoy playing this. I'd love to own it, but it's tricky to pull that off nowadays, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's in the collection. This is now going to stay in the collection.
Frankly, I am shocked you had this in a back room.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's in the back room because
in the unfinished part of the cellar.
Yeah. Where there's nothing on the wall and there's nothing on the ceiling, where our air conditioning and laundry. Yeah. Anyway, so. As I mentioned, and I was just saying, this was on my trade pile because I never thought we were going to get back to playing this one. There's just so many games that come out. It's really tough to play the older games. And I love that we're doing this podcast. It makes me very excited to be a part of this podcast because, we're really trying to spotlight these older games that...
real gems.
They're real gems and still have, something that makes them, relevant even, 15, 20, 10, 15, 20 years later.
And almost hard to define what it is. There's just, when
it's
easy.
It's
it
development.
Works. It's polished.
It's polished. Yeah. And, this isn't component polish. This is production. This is development polish.
Gameplay.
Yeah. It would be really easy to add a lot of bloat here.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody cut it down. There were some...
there was a lot of playtesting that was done. You can tell. And there was a lot of feedback that was given.
Yeah, and this was this was not a terribly expensive game, and it's not a huge package.
I think it was $30 retail for the base set and $25 for the expansion.
Wow.
Now it's, add $100 to each of those.
You can't buy Yahtzee for $30 now.
Yeah. But frankly, most of the box is empty space, it looks like.
Yeah. It's a lot of cards and some cardboard chips to kind of keep track of things.
Yeah. So all that to say, this is the most exciting rediscovery of a 7 that we've had so far.
Yeah.
I had to give it up on this because, like I said, there's just so much new stuff, and this is an older game that, is very easily overlooked. But, there's a reason why it's priced so high on the aftermarket. It's such a fantastic game, and I'm so happy we were able to pull this out and play it and kind of relearn it. Well, I relearned it. You guys learned it for the first time, and I'm happy to hear that you guys are down to play it again because...
I'm glad we walked to the back room because we're looking at your shelf here. And it's like, well, okay, we already played that. There's some more in the back. It's like, all right.
The only other thing in the back worth playing is Agricola.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we pulled this one instead because we'd still be playing that one and
we'd still be placing workers. Yeah.
But I'm so happy that we were able to pull this one out, and I'm looking forward to playing it, more down the line. So that's where I'm gonna put that one. Anyone have any parting thoughts for the episode on Blood Bowl Team Manager, the card game?
I just pity the game that comes along after this that has to compete.
I feel like this could be redone. Yeah, it wouldn't be Warhammer, but it could go. They could license, like I had mentioned before, Mutant League Football. They just re-released it. I don't know, maybe 4 years ago on PC on Steam. So it's a property that's out there. It's an IP that's out there. It would be real easy to kind of slot it in.
You could. I got to be honest here, though. I think maybe it's just because we just played it, but the way the mechanics come together, I think, do a really good job of marrying it to the theme of just a kooky, violent sports game, right?
Oh, well, you've never played Mutant League Football, then.
The absurdity of Warhammer.
The difference.
The absurdity of Warhammer, I think, adds a lot here.
Yeah, the difference is you're playing mutants and humans and cyborgs instead of orcs and...
Yeah, somebody would have to work very hard to keep the same level of lightness while at the same time talking about cheating and injuring other players.
Yeah.
So
So I think it'd be difficult to retheme this.
I think it would be worth the effort if somebody put that in.
I think Games Workshop is pretty loose with their IP.
Well,
so you could probably get the licensing.
For this?
Yeah.
No.
Shut down everyone.
They
have shut down everyone.
Them and Fantasy Flight don't get along very well anymore.
That's why this is never coming back.
Yeah.
At least not in this form.
So that's Blood Bowl Team Manager. If you have access to a copy, go play it.
Yeah.
If you don't, I mean, keep an eye on the BGG market, or if you go to a convention and there's an auction or a table sale,
go have a look.
Look for it. I mean,
but you won't find Steven's copy.
No, you won't find mine. If you can find a copy and it's doesn't break the bank, give it a shot. It's well worth it. And we're done?
We're done.
All right. John, Sam, and I thank you for joining us in conversation about Blood Bowl Team Manager, the card game. You can join us in conversation by visiting our website, cellargames.com, where you can find links to our social media and Discord server. We also have a blog and a guild on BoardGameGeek. We look forward to hearing from you.